Hello guys, welcome to Java programming tutorial video. In today's tutorial, we are going to learn about object-oriented concepts in Java. So in this tutorial, we are going to learn about the object-oriented concepts together with the practical implementation. So it's not just we are going to learn about the theory, at the same time we are going to implement a Java program that explains each of those object-oriented concepts. As I said, the objective for the today's class is this. First, we are going to revise the object-oriented concepts in Java. I don't know whether if you have done some object-oriented programming before, such as C# or C++. In case if you have done that one, so it's going to be the revision for you. In case if you have not done any object-oriented programming, don't worry, because I'm going to explain you what is object-oriented programming and the concepts that you need to know about object-oriented programming. Then the second objective is we are going to implement the Java program to understand each of those object-oriented concepts. So now let's get started. First, I want you to know what is object-oriented programming, because as I say that Java is object-oriented programming, yes, of course, but you should know exactly what is object-oriented programming. So object means a real entity. It can be a pen, pencil, chair, table, computer, human, watch, anything. You know those objects, right? So here now we are going to learn about object-oriented programs. So what does that mean? The name itself is there. So we are going to learn something related to the object. So it can be anything such as I say that a real entity such as a pen, chair, table, computer, it can be anything. So object-oriented programming is a methodology or a paradigm to design a program using classes and object. So you might be wondering, so okay, object-oriented programming is we are going to learn about the object, we are going to treat everything as an object. So what does that mean, these classes and objects? So how are we going to treat that object into classes? And so maybe you are a bit confused, right? What does that mean, class, and what does that mean, objects? Don't worry, I'm going to explain you in the next slides about what is class and what is object. By that time you will understand exactly what is classes and objects in object-oriented programming. So as for now, you just have to know object-oriented programming is a methodology or a paradigm to design a program using classes and objects. Second one is, okay, well, we know object-oriented programming, we are going to treat everything as an object. So to implement the program, we are going to use class and objects. That's okay. Then why object-oriented program? What is the need? Is there any use for us to use the object-oriented programming? Because before object-oriented programming, I'm sure that you know we were using procedural programming, right? Example, I would say programming with C, a C program. So C program is not an object-oriented programming where we don't use class and objects to implement the program. There we just use procedures. C programming is a procedure programming. Now this object-oriented programming is the next level. Maybe I would say it's a next upgrade of that procedural programming. So why object-oriented programming? The simple, the major objective of object-oriented programming is to eliminate some of the flaws encountered in the procedural approach. That is a reason why we have decided to use the object-oriented programming instead of using the procedural approach. So in this object-oriented programming, this object-oriented program treats data as a critical element in the program development and does not allow it to flow freely around the system. So what is the use of this one? When you don't allow the data to be move or maybe flow freely around the system, so what will happen in that case? The data will be protected, isn't it so? Because yes, we can have the data in our system, but in some cases it needs to be protected. Some cases you need to deny the access to some people, right? So even though that data is there in the program, but in some cases you need to protect that data from unauthorized access. So in that case we can use object-oriented program to protect that data from flowing freely throughout the program, right? So in that is the reason why object oriented programming is being introduced. Then third one is it ties the data more closely to the functions that operate on it and protects it from unintentional modification by other functions. That's the reason why I told you, if it is a procedural, it's easy for someone to modify the data that you have in your program. But in object oriented programming, that one is not possible because of the object oriented concept of encapsulation that we are going to learn in the later part of the tutorial. So we will learn what does that mean, confidentiality, how to hide the information from unauthorized access. So in short, when you use the object oriented programming, data is safe. You can keep the confidential data, but whereas in the procedural programming language, keeping the data against unauthorized access is very difficult. So that's the reason why we have using the object oriented programming. Then object oriented programming allows us to decompose the problem into a number of entities called objects, and then build the data and functions in object oriented programming. We call them as a method around these entities. So the combination of data and method will make up an object. So what does that mean, object? The combination of data and the method is the one who is going to make an object. So the data of an object can be accessed only by the method associated with that object. So in case if you don't understand this point, when I explain you the program part, you were able to understand what do I mean to say. The data of an object can be accessed only by the methods associated with that object, right? Finally, however, methods of one object can access the methods of other objects. Even this one, in case if you don't understand, I will explain you with a practical example for the better understanding. So as for now, you have to know methods of one object can access the method of other objects. In object oriented programming, when we say methods, is nothing but functions. In C programming, we call them as a functions, right? Function is an individual model to do the particular task. In methods, in object oriented programming, we use methods to do the particular task. We will see them in the later part of the tutorial. So what are all the features of object oriented programming? Object oriented programming emphasis on the data rather than the procedure. Programs are divided into objects, then data is hidden, therefore it cannot be accessed by the external function. Then objects may communicate with each other through methods. Finally, I would say new data and methods can be easily added whenever it is necessary. So these are all the important features of object oriented programming. Finally, now we have come to the place where to learn about the basic concept of object oriented programming. Actually, object oriented programming has got some specific features. First one, I would say classes and object. As I said that in object oriented programming, we create programs with the help of classes and objects. So that classes and object is the first part of object oriented concept. Then the second one is inheritance. So the third one is polymorphism. The fourth one is data abstraction and encapsulation. So these four are the core concept of object oriented programming: classes and objects, inheritance, polymorphism, data abstraction and encapsulation. We are going to learn each of these things in detail with a practical implementation. As for now, what you need to know is the basic concept of object oriented programming is the first one. The first and foremost important thing that you need to know about object oriented programming is a class and objects, inheritance, polymorphism, data abstraction and encapsulation. So these four are the object oriented concept in Java programming. In most of the object oriented programming, this is the four important things that they should have, right? So now let us learn about these classes and objects. Then I will show you how to create a class and how to create the object for that particular class. Are you excited? Let's get started with class and objects. First one is objects. So what is objects? Object is nothing but an instance of a class. So object is nothing but, as I said, an instance of a class. You might be wondering, what does that mean, instance of a class? I will show you in programming so that you will be able to understand. So an object in Java is the physical as well as the logical entity. When I say object, as I said, it can be pen, pencil, computer, laptop, bag, chair, desk, book, apple, backboard, it can be anything. So all these things we call them as an object. An entity that has a state and behavior is known as an object. For example, let's take this pen as an object. So each object will have an entity that has a state and behavior. So what is the state of this object pen? State is nothing but, maybe it can be blue, black, white. That's the state of the pen object. Maybe when I say, what is the behavior of this pen object? Writing. Behavior in the sense, what is it used for? That is a behavior, right? So usually we use pen for writing, right? So this pen object, the behavior is writing. When you say what is the state of this object pen, it can be blue or black or green, or you can even call the name of the brand. Let's say Reynolds is the name of the brand. So that's a state. So this is object in Java. So as you can see them here, there is a 3 characteristics of object. As I said, state. So state represents the data of an object. In that case, I would say, let's take pen as an object. In that case, what is state? The pen can have maybe red color, blue color, black color. So that is a state. Behavior. Behavior represents the behavior, or we can say functionality of an object, such as deposit, withdraw. In that same example that I said, for the pen object, the behavior is writing. What is it used for? We use pen for writing, right? So that is a behavior. Then the third characteristics of an object is identity. For example, if you have got a different pens, how can you identify that different pen? With an ID. Let's say maybe this is a Reynolds, this is a different brand. Maybe let's say this brand is Natraj, or this brand, maybe this brand of the pen is XYZ. So that is an identity. How can you identify the pen? Maybe with some unique ID, right? So this pen is this identity. Maybe blue pens, they are different identity. Red pens, different identity. So that is the next characteristics of an object. So identity is nothing but, an object identity is typically implemented via a unique ID, just to differentiate the different object, right? So the value of the ID is not visible to the external user. However, it is used internally by the Java virtual machine to identify each object uniquely. So these 3 are the important characteristics of an object. I hope now you have understood what is object in object-oriented programming. The next part is class. So what is class? A class is a group of objects which have common properties. It is the template or a blueprint from which objects are created. I don't know whether it is making sense or not. So let me say this one in short. So class is a group of objects. So object is what? Which nothing but, we can say pen, right, is an object. Chair is an object. Apple is an object, right? So class is nothing but a group of objects. For example, you cannot, then not necessarily, when you want to, let's say, take apple as an example object, right? So apple is a fruit, right? So you can say apple is an object from the class fruit, right? So apple is a fruit. So you can have grapes, bananas, everything as those are all the fruits, right? Grapes, bananas, apple, they are all fruits, but they all comes under the class of fruits, isn't it so? So here, when I say class, we can say class is a fruit. In that class fruit, we can have objects such as apple, orange, bananas, grapes. So that is how we create class. So class is a group of objects which have common properties. So when I say common properties, let's say when it comes to the fruits, we can say the color of the fruit, the taste of the fruit, those stuff, they are common properties, right? When I take a student as a class, student, they can have common properties such as student IDs, departments, a student name, So class is a group of objects which can have common properties. So in order to create a class in Java program, I'm sure that even in the previous tutorial we have seen how to create a simple program to print the hello world message. If you remember that tutorial, I'm sure that I've talked about how to create a class and how to create a method inside the class using the static method and the non-static method, and then I have even showed you how to create the object for that particular method in order to access the value of that class. So in case if you want to see that one, kindly watch that other tutorial where I taught about the basic program. Even if you don't watch that one, let me explain you again how to create a class and object so that we will see how to access the properties or the methods of a class using objects. So in order to create a class, here is a syntax. We are going to use class as a keyword followed by name of the class. So this class is a collection of fields and methods. Fields, which is nothing but the data members. What do I mean to say data member? Let's say the data members is nothing but it's like a data type where we are going to create a data type. Methods is nothing but, as I say, that in other words we can say functions. So in object oriented programming we don't call them as a functions, we call them as a methods where we are going to get the input, where we are going to set the input. So this is a basic syntax for us to create a class. Let me show you a simple program using class and object. So we know class is a group of objects which can have common properties. So it is a template or a blueprint from which objects are created. So this is a syntax. So object is nothing but an object in Java is the physical as well as the logical entity. As I say that an entity that can have a state and behavior, right? So let me show you this simple example of how to create class and object. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open my NetBeans IDE here. So I'm going to my file, new project. These things you know already because I taught you in the previous tutorial. Select the Java application, next. So here in the project name, let me call this one as a student because I need to create the fields and the methods according to that syntax that we have seen for the class, right? So I want to create the main method. So I'm going to tick this box. So click finish there. It's going to create the project for us. So here we go. The package is student. The name of the class is student. So as I showed you here, let me just split the screen so that it's easy for you to understand. So here I told you the syntax for the class is we are going to have the class as a keyword, as you can see them here, followed by name of the class. So the name of the class in this case is student. So what does that mean? This public is an access specifier. I'm sure that we have learned about this access specifier in the previous class. Even if you delete this one, nothing would happen because if you don't put anything, by default is going to be a default access specifier, right? So this is a simple structure of a class where we are going to have a class as a keyword followed by the name of the class. So inside we are going to have data members, or we can say we are going to have fields. So for example, when it comes to the student, what fields can we have? We can say string. A student can have name, right? Then I can say integer, maybe ID. So these two are fields, like here, string name and then integer ID. So these two are the fields for the class students. Is it okay? Then we need to create a method. So how are we going to create a method? I'm sure that even in the previous tutorial I showed you. Maybe you can say void. I can say student details as a name of the method. So inside, let me say I'm going to say system.out.println. So here let me say I'm just going to print something saying here, let's say this one is a student details, right? So here, as you can see them here, what I have done, I have created two fields, string, the name of the student, then integer, So instead of ID, let me call this one as a student ID so that it can make sense, right? So here these two are the fields. So this one is a method, right? Now this is my main function. Remember, now we are going to create the object for the class. How to create the object for the class? Even in the previous tutorial, I told you have to take the name of the class, followed by you need to create an object. Let me say stu, then followed by equals new. So what is the use of this new keyword? This new is a keyword. So what is the use of this new keyword? This new keyword will allocate the memory for the object that we are creating them here. So the use of this new keyword is to create the memory for the object that we are creating here for the class student. So here after new, we are going to have the class name student and then this semicolon. Now we have created the object for the class student. As I said, a class will have the collection of fields and the method. An object is an instant of a class. So this is an object. This object is the instance for this class. Is it clear? Right. Now, if you want to access the method, so what is the method here? Void student details, right? So if you want to access this method inside this main class, what you need to do? You have to get the object. So what is the object that we have created here? stu with dot operator. Then you need to call the method. What is the name of the method here? The name of the method is student detail. So when you put dot, and then you will see some options here. So what you are going to take them here is the student details. Why student details? Because that is the name of the method that I have created. Save and run. So go there in case if you want to run, go to the source file, go to the package student. So this one, right click, run. So it says student details. So it is, we have managed to print the information or the message within this method student details. So what if I want to set the name and the student ID for the students? What can I do? In that case, what if I want to print the name of the student and ID? How am I going to do that? It's simple. So here you can say in the next line, okay, we are going to print the student details first, then followed by what we are going to do, come here, you are going to have the object stu dot, then so now what I'm going to do, I want to print the name and the ID for the students. So in that case, I'm going to take the object dot, what is the name of this data type here? I mean the variable name, right? Student dot name. I'm going to set the name here. Let me say Ranjan. Okay, again I'm going to take the object, and then what I want to set them here is a student ID. So stu ID, select this one, maybe give the ID here 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Right, now what I want to do, I just want to print. If you want to print, what you need to do, system dot out dot println. So what do you want to print now? You want to print the student name and the ID. So if you want to print the student name and the ID, how can you print them? I would say stu dot, what I want to print them here is a name. Okay, then let me just give some space. Then I want to print them together with the stu dot student ID. Is that clear? So now I have assigned the values here, and then I'm trying to print. So when I run this one now, let me go there. Now you can see I have print the details, student details Ranjan together with the name of the student and then the student number. So this is how you can use the class and object in Java programming. So I hope this part is clear. If you have got any questions, don't forget to ask me through comment section. Now we are going to discuss one of the most important concept in object oriented programming, which is none other than inheritance. So what is inheritance in Java? Inheritance in Java is a mechanism in which one object acquires all the properties and behaviors of the parent object. So let me give you this example. For example, being a son, I am allowed to have the access of the house that was built by my father, right? So that is what it means. So because I am the son to my father, let's say I'm the only son to my father, so I have got all the rights for the properties that are belongs to my parent, right? So that is what it means. So inheritance in Java is a mechanism in which one object acquires all the properties and behaviors of the parent object. So the idea behind the inheritance in Java is that you can create new classes that are built upon existing classes. So for this, let me give you the example. As I said that being the only son from my parents, I have all the rights to have the properties that are belongs to my parents. Does that mean that I'm not allowed to buy some more properties? No. If you want to buy some more properties, you can still buy them. Same time, you can have the properties that are belongs to your parents as well. That is what it means. Then finally, when you inherit from an existing class, you can reuse the methods and fields of the parent class. Moreover, you can add new methods and fields in your current class also. So for this, let me give you the small example for you for the better understanding. Let's say my father built a 2-bedroom house. So that house is mine, right? In case if I want to extend that 2-bedroom house into a 3-bedroom house, there is no need for me to destroy the house. I can still have the 2-bedroom house. Maybe I can extend the portion from that existing house, right? So same applies here in inheritance. Maybe you can reuse the methods and fields of the parent class, such as like you can still use that 2-bedroom house, but by the same time you can still extend. Maybe if you have money, if you think that that house is too small, there is no need for you to destroy the house. Instead, you can add a portion. Maybe you can extend the house to the 3-bedroom house. That is what it means. So this is what inheritance in Java. So what is the use of this inheritance in Java? The most important use of inheritance is code reusability. As I said, that you can use the existing methods and the fields of the parent class. So what does that mean? There is no need for you to create a program every time, because you are going to make use of the code that was created earlier, so that from that code we can make one or two changes, so that that code can be reusable, right? So what is the use of this code reusability? So when you reuse the code, you can save the time and cost, right? That is the reason, that is the most important thing in the development. So let's say you are saving 1 hour time, you are saving maybe $100,000 by using the same code. It is actually quite helpful than starting everything from the scratch, right? So that is why we use inheritance in object-oriented programming. So let me show you how the inheritance in Java can be used in programming with a practical demonstration. Before we go there, let me show you the syntax for us to use the inheritance concept in Java. The syntax is this. We are going to use the class as a keyword. Then this is where you need to pay attention. So when I say this is where you need to pay the attention, so class here, we are going to use the subclass name here. Subclass, I would say this is a subclass or a child class, right? So we are going to use the keyword as a extend. So this is most important thing. So we are going to use the class as a keyword. Then here we are going to have the child class. Then this is the keyword that we use in inheritance to inherit the properties from the parent class to the child class. I hope it's clear, right? So here, when I say superclass name, this one we can call them as a superclass, or we can call them as a base class, or simply we can say them as parent class. So inside we are going to have the methods and fields. So this is a basic syntax for us to use the concept of inheritance. So let me show you the practical example for the better understanding, so that you would understand how the inheritance in Java would work to make use of the code reusability. So here what I'm going to do, let me open my text editor. Here we go. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to, let's say I want to create a new project. So now I'm going to the file, click new project. select the Java application here, click next. So here the project name can be anything. Let me say, since it's an inheritance, let me call the project name as inheritance. Here, if you have noticed one thing, I don't want to create the main class because I want to create it manually, so that you know how to create manually to create a class, right? So I'm going to click finish. If you can see them here in the left side, there is a project has been created with a name called inheritance. So go to the source package, click here, then here is a default package, select that one, right click, go to new, come and select Java class. So here is a place where you're going to create the name of the class, right? So here in the name of the class, what I can say, let me call this class as a bird. So I'm going to click finish. So this one is going to create a class name called bird, right? So if you want to have an access specifier as public, you can have it. Otherwise, if you want to remove the access specifier, it's too okay, because it's going to be default, right? When it comes to the default package, we have learned about access specifier in the previous tutorial. If you want, you can go and watch that video so that you can understand how the default package, how the default access specifier would work in Java. So here, let's say this is a parent class. So this parent class, I'm going to have some fields. When I say fields, I'm sure that you remember. Fields is nothing but the data members, where we are going to define the data types. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to say public. Let me call this one as a string data type. I'm going to give some name. So here, since it's a bird, so I'm just call this one as a reproduction. Okay, so the reproduction of the bird is usually egg, right? So that's the most cases. Then let me have another field. What we can have, maybe, okay, public is an access specifier. I can have string data type again. Maybe let me call this one as a outer covering. So this outer covering for the birds is a feather, right? Or feathers, whatever, right? So these are all the two. What's the error here? Oh, it's an uppercase. It has to be a lowercase, right? It's a keyword. So these are all the two data fields. If I want to have a method, so we can have them, so as I showed in the last explanation for the object and classes. We can even have a methods. Let me call this method as a void. Usually for the birds, what we can say, okay, let me call this one as a fly up as a method, right? So within this fly up method, I'm just going to print the message system.out.println. Inside I can say maybe flying up. Right, the bird is flying up. Maybe I can have another method. Let me copy and paste them down there. This one I would say fly down. Maybe this one is flying down. Right, so this is a class bird. It has got fields. Even if you don't have this public, is there anything wrong? Nothing wrong, right? You can still have them as a string data type followed by name of the variable and the value. It's still okay, right? So it's not necessarily, or if you want to have a public as an access specifier, is still okay, right? But if you use private, remember you cannot access this data member out of this class unless if you use the method with a public where you can able to access these data members. We will see the example in later part of the video so that you will know what if I use private here. I'm sure that you have learned in C++, if you have learned it before. If you use private as a data members in the method, you have to make sure that you can able to access the value of these particular data members. We will see them in later examples. So as for now, what you need to do, we have created a class with a name called bird, and this class has got two data members, or we can say these two fields together with the two methods. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another class. Let me call this class as maybe any bird. Let me call the this one as an ego. Okay, this is another class. So inside this class, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another two fields. Let me call this as a string, then name is a data type. I'm just going to assign some value for this. So because since it's an ego, so let me call this one as an ego, right? Maybe let me have another data type. Let me have this one as a different integer. Let me call this one as a lifespan for ego. I don't know exactly, so let me make it as 20 years. Is it too much? Okay, let me make it as, okay, let it be 20 years, right? So these are all the two data fields that are found in this class name called ego. Okay, now what I'm going to do, we have got two different classes, but according to the inheritance, if you check the syntax here, this is a syntax which says class. If you want to inherit the properties from the parent class to the child class, you have to use class. This subclass is nothing but the child class. Then we have to use the keyword as extend. Then from there, we are going to access the superclass. In this case, superclass is the parent class. So when you come here, let's consider this ego is the child class and this bird is a parent class, let's say. So in case if you want to access the methods and the fields from this class bird into this class ego, what you need to do, you have to use the keyword as extends. Remember, you have to use the keyword as extend, then followed by you have to use the name of the parent class. So what is the name of the parent class? In this case, bird is the name of the parent class. So copy and paste them here. Is that okay? I hope it's clear. Now, as I said in the theory part, when I was explaining about the inheritance, let me show you here, in case if you have forgotten. I said, when you inherit from existing class, you can reuse the methods and fields of the parent class. Moreover, you can add new methods and fields in your current class also. That is the reason why we can still able to access these classes from the parent class to the child class. Moreover, if you want to have some more methods and data fields, you can still have them. That is the reason why I have added two more data fields. But if I want to have another method here, still I can have them. So what is the procedure? I would say void, let me say ego fly as a method, right? So inside this method, I would say, let me just copy and paste this system.out.println. So here, instead of flying down, I would say ego is flying. So what does that mean? Since this ego is the child class, bird is the parent class, you can still have your own methods and the data fields are the fields of your own here, right? That's the reason why this one belongs to the child. Even this method belongs to the child, but still this child class can have access for this particular parent class. So to prove that, what I'm going to do here, let me create the main method. I'm going to say public static void main. So inside I'm going to have string, the array of string with an argument, yes. So inside what I'm going to do, so this one is public, right? So inside what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the object for the child class, because what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to access the parent class from the child class. So when you create the object here, you have to create the object for the child class, not for the parent class. The reason is we are trying to check whether this child class can able to access the properties and the data fields of the parent class. So when you create the object here, you have to make sure that you are going to create the object for the child class, not for the parent class. So if you want to create the object for the child class, you have to choose the class of the child. Then let's say here E1 as an object equals, the new is a keyword which helps us to create the memory for the object that we have created them here. then again we have to call the name of the class, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this object e1 dot, what I'm trying to do them here is I'm just going to call the methods here. So let's say I have the name there, right, from the parent class. Let me call this one name, and then so what I want to print, I just want to print them. So here I'm going to say system dot out println. So inside I'm going to print the name from the parent class, right? So let me just copy and then come here, paste. So instead of name, what I'm going to do is outer feathering, outer covering, e1 dot, let me just outer covering, right? So what does that mean? So this e1 is the object for the child class, but this name and outer covering are part of the fields from the parent class. Okay, only this outer covering is the data field from the parent class. So even here we have the reproduction. So let us make use of the reproduction. So here what I'm going to do, system.out.println. So e1 dot, let me call reproduction. So what we are trying to do, from the child class we are trying to access the fields from the parent class, because this outer covering and reproduction are the field from the parent class bird, so reproduction and covering. So let's say if you can able to access the methods of this parent class, fly up and fly down. So what does that mean? So here simple, what we are going to do them, here I'm going to say e1 dot, in that case we are just going to call the methods. So eagle fly is from the method from the eagle class, and then e1 dot, is it while fly down or fly, okay, fly down is from the parent class, again e1 dot, is it fly up? Yes, fly up. I hope you have noticed here I have not used system.out.println because these three methods have already system.out.println. So when I call that method, is going to display the result of the things that are belongs to this system.out.println. You might be surprised. What is the reason behind that you have used system.out.println to print the e1.name, e1.outCovering, e1.reproduction? Remember, if you want to print the values of the fields, you have to use system.out.println, because this name, outer covering and reproduction, they are fields, they are not the methods. So they are fields with the values, right? What I mean to say fields, they are data types. If you want to print the data types, you have to use system.out.println in order to see the values that are assigned to that particular variable. But if you want to print the values from the method, the assumption is within the method there is already a system.out.println which has the message. So we are trying to just print the message. That is the reason why we have not used system.out.println to print the values, right? I hope everything is clear as for now. So simple, this one we have used the concept of inheritance because we are trying to inherit the properties. What do I mean to say properties? We are trying to access the fields and methods of a parent class from child class. So imagine if there is no inheritance. What does that mean? If there is no inheritance, we need to rewrite this code even here in the child class in order to print the details. To avoid that, they introduce the concept of inheritance. That's the reason why we have just created what we need for this class, but still we can able to access the fields and methods from the parent class. So this is what we call them as a code reusability. This is a major use of using the inheritance. Let's see if this one is working. So I'm going to the bird.java. Let me go there. I'm going to run. So as you can see them here, we can able to print everything. First, we are trying to print e1.name. This one is a e1.outCovering, e1.reproduction. Then we have called the methods from the parent class. We have called the method from the child class. Eagle is flying. We have called the methods from the parent class, flying down and flying up. No wonder that we can able to print these messages in this order because of the way that we call them in the main method. I hope now you have understood how the inheritance in Java is working, especially when it comes to the code reusability. So we have learned about inheritance and the syntax. We have followed how to create an inheritance. But in inheritance in Java, there are types. So you have learned them in C++. Even in C++, inheritance have some types. First inheritance is a single inheritance. Second inheritance is a multi-level inheritance. Third inheritance is the hierarchical inheritance. So these are all the three inheritance that are found in the Java. I'm sure that you might be surprised, because if you have learned C++, you have come across with multiple inheritance. What does that mean, multiple inheritance? When you derive a class from more than two superclasses or more than two parents. For example, let's say the child class has got two parent class, but that child class wanted to access the properties and methods from those two classes. We use a multiple inheritance, right? So that multiple inheritance in Java is not supported, because I will show you why is it not supported when you use the classes. Let me make it this one clear. Multiple inheritance in Java is not supported when you use the classes, but when you use the concept of interface, multiple inheritance in Java is allowed. Or I would say, when you use the concept of interface, you can able to use the multiple inheritance. So I will show you what does that mean, interface, how to work with multiple inheritance with interface in Java as we move on in this same tutorial. So as for now, there are only three types of inheritance that are found in the Java. First one is a single, second one is a multi-level, third one is a hierarchy. So what is single? Single is nothing but the example that we have seen. So we are going to have a base class. From that base class, we are going to access the properties and methods of this base class into our derived class. Or we can call this one as a parent class, this one is a child class. So example that we have seen them just before now is the example for the single inheritance, because we had one base class or we had one parent class name called birds. Then we can able to access the methods and the properties of this class into our child class called ego, so that we can able to access the properties of this class, right? So that is an example for single inheritance. So single inheritance means when a class inherits another class, it is known as single inheritance. Then the next inheritance is multi-level inheritance. So this one is different. For example, as you can see them in the diagram, is going to have the levels. So what does that mean? We can have the parent class. So I would say this is like your grandfather. From your grandfather, your dad has got the properties and method. Maybe your grandfather built a house, then that house came to your father. Then from that then from your father, you got that house. So this is how multi-level inheritance would work. So let me give you this example so that you would understand how multi-level inheritance would work in Java. I'm sure that you have already seen the single inheritance. Now let me show you the multi-level. So this is an example diagram. From your grandfather, it will reach to your father. From your dad, now you took over the properties, right? So for that, let us see this example so that you can able to understand how multi-level inheritance would work. So here, let me create a new project so that it will be easy. So I'm going to the file, new project, Java application. Okay, so I would call this one as a multi-level. This is multi-level, not multiple, remember, right? So click finish. So here is a multi-level. Go there, go to the source package. Here default package, right click, new, go to the Java class. So create the class that you want to create. So let me say I'm going to create a class as Animo. Okay, click finish. Okay, so here is an animal, right? So here is a class, the first class. I would say this one is grandfather class, the first class. So here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one method. Let me say void it as a method. I'm not going to have the fields. So here I'm just going to have the system.out.println. So inside I'm just going to pass the message saying eating. Right. So this is a parent class. Now if you want to create the child class for this parent class Animo, as usual, what you need to do, you have to create class as a keyword, then you have to have the child class for this Animo. Let me call this one as a, what can we say, dog. So this dog is a child class from this parent class Animo. So if you want to access the method from this parent class to this child class, what you need to do, simple, we are just going to use extend as a keyword, and then from this Animo, right? Then from here, what I'm going to do, what we can do, maybe we can just create a method, void, since it's a dog, it can bark. Here I'm just going to write a message saying, let me just copy and paste them here. Barking, I would say barking, right? So this is a parent class. Consider this one as your grandfather, this is your father. Then from there you will come here. So the next one is the next level. So the next level is nothing but another class. Let me call this one as a class. How can we call this one even? Okay, let me call this one as a baby dog. Then this baby dogs is extending, extends as a keyword from where? This class name called dog, right? So inside you can have the method, maybe void whip as a method. So here, let me just copy and paste for the interest of time. I would say this one is weeping, right? So what we have done, we have the parent class, I mean the superclass. So this superclass, this is a superclass, this is a derived class, because we are deriving the properties and methods from this class Animo. Then this is the next level, we are trying to create another class, and this class is deriving the properties and method from this class. This is multi-level, as you can see them here in the diagram. Base class, derived class A, and derived class B, meaning we are deriving the properties from the class A here. Here we are deriving the properties from class B. What does that mean? At the end of the day, this class C can have the properties, can have the access to the properties and methods of both class B and A. It's just like you are the grandchild here, you can have the access from the properties from the class B and the class A, right? So being a grandchild, you can have the access to your father's property as well as your grandfather's property. That is what it means, right? So here, if you want to check, you have to create a main method. Let us just create a main method. So what we can do, we can come down here, create a main method. Main method is public static void main. So within this public static void main, so what you need to you need to create an object, right? So which class are you going to create an object for now? You have to create the object for this class, the last class, because we are trying to check, being the last person here in the family, let's say it's me, right? So I am trying to check whether if I can able to access the properties of my parents as well as my grandparent, right? So here I'm just going to create an object for this last class that I have created, baby dog. So let me call this one as a baby, as an object, new keyword to create the memory allocation for this object that I have created for the same class, baby dog. Right now what I'm going to do, baby dot, if I want to access the methods from the first class, the method is eat, right? So I'm just going to call baby dot eat. Then again baby dot weep is another method from my parent class. Then baby dot what is the last one? The last class I have said that barking, bark. Actually weep is the last one, so let me just place them in order so that, so this one is from the grandfather class, this is from the parent class, this is from the last child class. So when I save and run, you see I can still able to access the properties and methods from the grandfather's class, from the father's class, as well as from my own class, right? So this is how multi-level inheritance would work in Java. Then the next type, as I said, that is a third one, which is hierarchical inheritance. What does that mean, hierarchical? Maybe if you can see this diagram, I'm sure that you can still able to understand. So hierarchical inheritance is nothing but when two or more classes inherits a single class. So this is like, for example, this is like my father. Maybe these are my siblings, not only me, because even my siblings, even for my siblings, he is my dad, right? So let's say he has got 5 houses. Let's say not 5 houses. Let's say my father has got only 1 house. So being the children of my fathers, me, my sister, and my brother can have the access for that house, right? So this is how hierarchical inheritance would work. So let me show you this simple example for the better understanding. So here what we are going to do, we are just going to make some modification in the same example that we have seen them for the multi-level. So let's have this one as a, so let's consider this one is like my parent class. So this is a first child, right? So there are 3 childs here, 1, 2, 3. So here what I'm going to do, so this dog extend animal, let it be like that. So here I'm just going to create this baby dog. Instead of baby dog, okay, let it be the baby dog, but instead of trying to access the properties of this dog, so this one, even this one, I want to access my father there, right? So it's going to be animal. I hope you understand why I have replaced the dog with animal, because this is a firstborn, this is a secondborn. So the firstborn can have the access to the animal class, even the secondborn can have the access to the same parent class. Even if you want to create another class, as the example shows. So let me say what I can do. Let me just copy and paste them here. So this one, instead of baby dog, I can call this one as a cat. So instead of weep, let me call the method as sound. I'm sure that you know how the cat would make nice meow, right? So let me just say this one as meow, right? So I'm sure that now you have understood what I have done. So what I have done, all I have done here is this. I have got 3 different childs, but all of them are trying to access the value from that parent class. So here in my main class, now where am I going to which one am I going to create the object for? I hope you would have surprised. So which one am I going to create? So anything, for example, here we have removed this part. Let's say I want to create the object for this cat class to check if I can able to access, because here is not necessarily you are going to create object for the specific class. For example, here what I mean is, if you want to check whether if this class can have access to this class, in that case you are going to create the object for this class. In case if you want to check that this class C can have the access to this class A, you are just going to create the object for the class C. If you think of creating an object for the class C and trying to access the class B, it's not possible, because there is no connection. You are allowed to access the properties and methods from the class A only. From this class C, if you try to access the value from the class B, do you think that it's possible? It's not possible. Let me show you. So here I have the class name as cat. I'm going to create object C1 is equal to new cat, right? From this object C1, if I want to access to the class animal, the method is eat1. Yes, I can able to access. Let me say eat. There is no error. When I run, this one would work. You see, eating. But with this object C1, let's say I'm trying to access the method from the dog, which means bark. As soon as I put bark, you find that there is a big fat error. What is the reason?
So let me explain you here. It's like, though they are my siblings, this person can't come to my house and claim my house is his house. No, he has got no rights, because that house is my personal, that one is belongs to my family, not to my siblings, right? But as long as this house is built by my father, so being a sibling, this person and this person can have the rights to access this house, but not my house. That's the reason why it's giving us big fat error here. So even if you want to access the method from that class, like let's say weep, do you think that is going to give us the result? No, even this one is also going to give us the big fat error, because this person is not allowed to access the methods from my siblings. Maybe you are only allowed to access the methods from my parent, but not my own property. Yes, we are all siblings, we are allowed to access the house from my father, but from our father, but you have got no rights to have any access to my personal house, right? So that is what it means. So this is how hierarchical inheritance would work. Then, as I said, multiple inheritance, in the sense this class is going to derive from two parent class. So this one is not allowed in Java with the classes, but this one is allowed in Java with a method name called interface. So we are going to learn about interface in the later part of the session. Now let me show you why this one is not work in Java with the classes. So here what I am going to do, okay, so maybe let me see if I can modify something here for us to understand, right? So Animo, let this one be like that. So let me create dark class, let me remove this part. Okay, okay, so here let me remove this part, because so here you can see this one is a separate class and this one is a separate class. Why do I what do I mean to say separate class? Because this dog, I have removed the extend keyword, meaning it's not inheriting anything from anywhere. So this one is a separate class. This class dog is also a separate class, right? Just like this. So this one is a separate class, this one is a separate class. So this class, what we are trying to do, we are trying to inherit from class A and class B. So for that, what we need to do, so here we are going to say class baby dog is a class C, extends is going to extend from animals, comma, and then it's going to extend from dog. As soon as I put extend animal comma dog, is giving us a big fat error, because multi-level inheritance is not allowed in Java when you use the classes like this. I'm sure that if you try the same in C++, it would work. But in Java, when you use the class for the multiple inheritance, not multi-level, multiple inheritance, it will give us the big fat error. But these issues can be solved with the help of the method name called interface in Java, so that we can still have a multiple inheritance. I will show you towards the end of this session, so that you will understand how to use the interface, especially to have a multiple inheritance. As for now, all you need to do, we only have three inheritance: single, multi-level, hierarchy, right? So we don't have multiple inheritance in Java unless if you use interface as a method, right? I hope now you have understood what is inheritance, what is the role of inheritance in Java programming.
Let us discuss about polymorphism in Java. The word polymorphism means having many forms. So I would say you can divide this polymorphism into two words. Poly means many, morphism means in form, many forms, right? So the word polymorphism means having many forms. In simple words, we can define polymorphism as ability of message to be displayed in more than one form. Let me give you this example for the better understanding. Let's say a person at the same time can have different characteristics, isn't it so? Like a man at the same time, he can be a father, he can be a husband,
at the same time he can be a employee at somewhere, right? So the same person possesses a different behavior in different situations. This is called polymorphism. That is the reason why I said, in simple words, we can define polymorphism as the ability of message to be displayed in more than one form. It depends on the place that you were trying to use. I hope this one makes sense now. So polymorphism has got two types. First one is a compile time polymorphism. Another one is a runtime polymorphism. Let us discuss about the compile time polymorphism. When it comes to the compile time polymorphism, we can also call this compile time polymorphism as a static polymorphism, or it can we would say it is a method of overloading. So when I say method overloading, maybe when I say compile time polymorphism, or if I say static polymorphism, or if I say method overloading, they're all same. They all comes under the compile time polymorphism. So what does that mean, compile time polymorphism? As I say, that is a method overloading. What does that mean, method overloading? If you use the same method more than one time, is called method overloading. I hope you remember the examples that we have seen when we learned in the inheritance concept. I have used the method name as void fly, right? Fly down, fly up. In case if I use that same method within the class more than one time, then we call that one as a method overloading. But there is a one difference here. You can use the method with the same name, but the parameters has to be different. I'm sure that you know what is parameter, right? So let me show you to make you understand easily what does that mean. Compile time polymorphism, or I would say it's a static polymorphism, or I would say it's a method overloading. Let me show you this practical example for you to understand exactly what is method overloading. So let me go to the file. I'm going to create a new project as usual. I'm just going to create a Java application. Click next. Let me call this one as a method overloading, right? Click finish. So here is a method overloading project. Go to the source package. Here in the default package, right click, go to the new, then select Java class. Let me call this class as a bird. Maybe let us try to use the same example that we were using even in the previous example. So here I have a class name called bird. As I say, that this public is not mandatory, but if you want to have them, you can have them. Or if you just want to have a class, just have the class keyword together with the name of the class. Let me say here I'm going to have a method. Let me say void fly is the name of the method. So within the void fly, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to have the system.out.println. So here I'm just going to pass the message as the bird is flying, right? So this is a method. So this is what is the error here? Oh, sorry, there was a S at the end. It was a typo error. Okay, so this is a class, this is a method name called void fly, right? So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another method with the same name. You have seen void fly is the method that I have created before. Again, I have created the another method with the same name. So this is called method overloading. We are overloading the method. So when it comes to the method overloading, there is a one thing. So if you do this, it will be an error, right? So as you can see them here, there is an error here. There is an error here, right? So even if I just pass this message here, let me say, you might be surprising. Maybe we have not put system.out.println, and that's the reason why that wasn't there. No, but it's an error. When you try to overload the method, is called method overloading, but you are allowed to overload the method with different parameters. When I say parameters, where do you pass the parameters? Usually we pass them here in the parentheses, right? So let me say integer height. Now we have seen the error that was came before has gone now. There is no error up to now, because when you use a method overloading, you are allowed to use the same method, but the condition is with the different parameters. So here there is no parameters, here there is a parameter, so that is what the difference. So you are allowed to use the same method but with the different parameters. Let's say here I'm just going to say the message saying the bird is flying, and then what I'm going to say, I'm just going to say, since I have passed the parameter, I need to pass the value for that parameter, so I'm going to plus height, because I need to get the parameter from the height. I'm just going to say feet, right? So here there is a parameter name called height. Now what is the next thing? I need to pass the value for this variable height, so that height will be collected and displayed here. So at the end of the day, the result will be the bird is flying. Maybe whatever the height that you are passing as a value for this parameter, that one would come here, let's say 100 feet, something like that, right? So what we are trying to say them here, we can use the same method with the different parameters, is called method overloading, or this one we can call them as a compile time or a static polymorphism. So here what I'm going to do, so let me create another method, void fly. Okay, as soon as I create this method, again you would see an error here because I have same method here. So what I need to do, I have to pass the parameter. So that parameter can be anything, right? So let me say integer height. Again there is an error. Why? Because there is a method, another method with the same parameter. That is a reason why there is a big fat error. In that case, what you can do, you can add another parameter, like say string. It's a data type. We can have the value for the string. What can we say? Maybe name. Now the fat error has gone. The reason is, even when you pass the parameter, make sure that you have to pass the different parameters. So in this case, there is an integer height. So when you have the same method with the same name, maybe you can have different parameters. Otherwise, there is another way. You can even here, let's say, even here, string name. String name. In this case, it's going to throw us an error. Why? Because this method and this method has got the same method name as well as the same parameter. So in that case, this is an error. To avoid that, what we can do, we can change the order of the parameter to avoid this error. What we can do, so let me cut this one and let me bring them here. Let me make the comma. Now the error has gone. Though those parameters, integer height, even here there is an integer height. String name, even here there is a string name. But the difference is, I have changed the order of this parameter. I hope you have understood. First, we can have the same method name with a different parameter. That's the first thing. So when it comes to the parameters, you can have the same parameter, but you have to change the order of the parameter, as I have showed you here. So here string name integer height, even here integer height string name, but the order has been changed. So that is a reason why here there is a no error. So let me say here, I'm just going to say system dot, let me just copy and paste for the interest of time. Right, so here what I'm going to print, the maybe I just want to print the name here. So the name that I'm going to collect through this variable, right? Then this is a string, so it has to be there. Not flowing, there is a typo error. Flying, the name, and then the bird is the bird. There is no bird here because I'm going to get the bird name here. Is flying. What can we say? Then the height, then the feet, right? So here, if you want to make changes, because even here I'm going to pass two parameters. So so let me just change the order. Here I would say feet, then that feet is the height that I'm going to get. Is flying as a message. Let's say here I have to put the, and then here I'm going to say the name, right? Now all these three are the same method name, white fly, white fly, white fly, but how are they different? With the parameters, or maybe with the order of parameters, right? This is how method overloading would work. So if you want to see how does this one would work, just create the main class here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create the main class, public static void main. So inside, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create the object for the class. In that case, class is a bird. So let me say bird is a class, object is, let me call this one as a my bird is an object, equals new as a keyword, and then bird is the class. Right now we have the method. So what do you need to do? So get the object my bird dot, if you want to call the first method, what you are going to do, just fly, so that the first method would be called. So if you want to my bird, the object is this, right, dot, then when you call the fly, is going to call the first method, then it's going to print the details here. So if you want to call this second method, what you need to do, same my bird dot, here you can see the second method, you need to pass two parameters, string name and integer height. Select this one. So first one you have to pass the name. Let me, in the name field, let me pass that one as an ego. Second one is a parameter, so let's say 1000 feet. So here there is an error because eagle is a string, it has to be there in the double quotes. The error has gone, right? So maybe let me call this one as a my bird dot fly. Here first I have to pass the feet, let me say 200, the name of the string. So here is a string name, is a data type, it has to be there in the double quotes. Let me call this one as a dove, right? So when I save and run this one, you will see the bird is flying, the eagle is flying 1000 feet, the feet 200 is flying dove, just because of it's okay, maybe just because of this sentence it's just saying like the feet, and then the following, the height that we have passed them here was flew by, something like that. By, so when I save and run again, feet 200 was flew by dove, right? So this is how method overloading would work. So I'm sure that now we have understood what is method overloading or compile time polymorphism. As I said, that polymorphism, poly means many, morphism means many forms. So as you can see them here, the polymorphism has the ability of a message to be displayed in more than one form. What do I mean to say more than one form? The message is white fly, right? But it is displaying different message because here there is no parameter, so it's displaying this message. It's like I am the son to my father, I am the husband to my wife, I am an employee for a certain institution. So that's the reason why everywhere, but my name is fly everywhere, so it's me, fly. Even here I'm fly, even here I'm fly, even here I'm fly, but I'm displaying different messages because of the place where I am. So this is how polymorphism will work in object oriented programming. So this one we call them as a compile time polymorphism or method overloading, or we can call this one as a static polymorphism. The second one is, as you can see them here, runtime polymorphism. right? So first one is a compile time. Now we are going to learn about runtime polymorphism. So this runtime polymorphism is also known as dynamic polymorphism. That one is a static. Compile time is a static. So runtime polymorphism, we can call them as a dynamic polymorphism, or it has got another method name as method overriding. So what does that mean, method overriding? I'm sure that you remember. Method overloading means we can have the same method name with the different parameters, or we can even change the order of the parameters. But method overriding means we are going to have the same, everything is going to be same. Maybe you might be wondering, is it possible for us to have the same method or a same method with the same parameters? Yes, it's possible, but you have to use the concept of inheritance. You are not allowed to have the same methods within the same class. I hope you understood what I mean to say. Within the same class, if I say wide fly without parameter, wide fly without parameter, you have seen there was an error, right? But when it comes to the method overloading, we can have the same method name with two different classes. So let me say this. So let me remove this part now, right? So I'm going to create another class. Let me call this class as a ego, as we know already. And then ego is a child class. So I'm going to use extend as a keyword from bird. So inside, let's say I'm going to have the method name as this same. Let me just copy and paste. Right? So here inside, so now as you can see them here, I have got two methods named called wide fly and wide fly. Both are same. I'm not even no parameters inside. Even here there is no parameters. No, there is even here it has got the bird is flying. Here let me say ego is flying. So when it comes to the method overriding, we are going to use the same method in two different classes. So this is like a parent, this is a child class. So here what is going to happen, this child class method wide fly is going to override the method that belongs to the parent class. So what I mean to say is going to override. So here I'm going to create the object for the ego. Let's say eg is equal to new ego. So when I say eg dot fly, why there is an error here? Let me just cut this part for now. So this class starts here and ends here. So this class starts here and ends here. So here I'm just going to create the public static void main, what I have done there. So within the class, so public static void main, when I save this one, I hope you have seen, right? So this is a parent class, this is a child class. Within the child class, let me just move this so that you won't get confused. So within this child class, I have the method and the main class. In this main class, what I'm trying to do, since I have fly as a method even in the parent class as well as in the child class, so what is going to do, this child class method is going to override the method that was found in the parent class. So let me save and run. So when I run this one now, application, okay, because of this one, let me go there and run. As you can see them here, the ego is flying. Sometimes when you use this button, it might pick up the previous program. So in case if you have that issue, go to the actual project, select the file, right click, then run file. So you might be wondering how come I got rid of that error. I've not done anything, because when you click this play button, sometimes it picks the previous program, then it would run that program. So that's the reason why that error came. So now what I have done, I have gone to the actual program, here right click, click the run file. As you can see them here is going to work according to our program that we have written. So here you can see ego is flying. Though I have got two fly methods, but the method that are found in the child class was override the method that found in the parent class. So this is how method overriding would work in polymorphism. So this is called runtime polymorphism or dynamic polymorphism, or we can call them this one as a method overriding. So this is about the polymorphism in object oriented concept, especially in Java program.
Let us learn about abstraction in Java. So abstraction is one of the object oriented concepts as we have discussed in the first session. So what is abstraction? Abstraction is a process of hiding the implementation details and showing only functionality to the user. I hope that it's a bit confusing to understand. So let me give you this simple example for you to understand what do I mean to say. For example, let's say every one of us this time around, we like chatting with our friends, right? So when you chat with your friends, what you usually do, you type messages, then you send them. But do you really care about how that message delivery system would work? Most of us, we don't know really what is happening behind the scenes of this message delivery system, most of us, right, as I say. But some maybe you know that behind the scenes when it comes to the passing of message from one end to another end. What I mean to say, we don't care what is happening in the beginning as long as we can able to send and receive messages. That is what exactly can be done with the help of abstraction in Java. So abstraction is the process of hiding the implementation. As I say, that we don't care, we don't even know what is happening in this behind, especially when it comes to the sending and receiving messages. All we want to know is we want the message to be sent, and then we want to see the replies from our senders, right? So that is the only thing that we are focusing on. So that thing can be done with the help of abstraction. So how are we going to achieve this abstraction? These abstractions can be achieved in two ways. One is by using the abstract class, another one is by using the interface method. So these two are the one which enables us to focus on the front end, what is really we wanted, not necessarily focusing on what is happening behind the screens. So this abstraction can be achieved with the help of two things. First one is an abstract class, the second method is an interface. So now let us learn about the abstract class, and then we are going to learn about how this abstract class is going to help us to hide the scenes behind the screen, and then we are just going to witness how this thing is been working in the front end as a user. What are we going to see, right? So abstract class are defined usually with a keyword name called abstract. So when you want to say this part of the program we have used, this part of the class we have used the concept of abstraction or an abstract class. So first thing that you need to do is the class has to be defined with a keyword name called abstract. Then an abstract class is a superclass. Superclass is which is nothing but the parent class that cannot be instantiated. What do I mean to say cannot be instantiated? Let's say we have seen the inheritance concept. Let's say the class is bird, then inside we had a method name called void fly. The bird is flying. Maybe we had another class ego extends, we inherited the properties from the parent class. Then we had another method void eat. Let's say we are eating. So when you come to the main class, we create the object for the child class saying ego, because eagle is a child class for the parent class bird. Then we can still be able to access the parent class, right? But when you use the abstract class, when you create the object for the child class, in case if you have the method with the abstract keyword, that class cannot be instantiated. Meaning if you have the method in your parent class with a keyword name called abstract, that part cannot be instantiated to the child class. I would say even the house that belongs to my dad, maybe being a only son for my dad, that house is going to be mine after my dad, right? That one is clear. In case if my dad says that no, though this house I have built, so what I'm going to do, this particular portion from this house I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to give you. You're not allowed to this part of the house even after me, because I want to give this part of the house to be donated to the orphans. So you have got no rights on this part. If he want, he can restrict me, isn't it? So same thing we are going to do it here with the help of abstract class. So methods can be accessed from the parent class to child class in the inheritance, but
if the parent class has the method name as abstract, so that portion of the method cannot be instantiated to the child class. I hope you understand what I mean. So if I explain you with the programming, I'm sure that you can able to understand. Then in case if you want to instantiate one of its child class, you want to create a new object, right? So an abstract class can have both abstract method and concrete method. I will show you what does that mean, abstract method and the concrete method. Abstract method means we are going to have the keyword as an abstract in front of the method. Instead of just writing white fly, we are going to write a method with abstract white fly. That is the abstract method, right? Concrete method means the normal method. When I say white fly, that is a concrete method. Concrete method in the sense where we are going to have the definitions for that particular method. I will show you so that you can understand. So concrete method in abstract class can be overridden in inherited class. As I said that when you just write white fly, that method can be overridden, right? Even in the previous example, we have seen in the polymorphism what is overridden. When you have two same methods, that method from parent class and the child class, you can override the method from the parent class in child class with as long as the method name is same. So concrete method can be overridden, but if the method in the parent class is an abstract method, you cannot override. So in case if you use the keyword as final for that particular concrete method, so concrete method in the sense void fly is a concrete method, the normal method, right? In case instead of using abstract as a keyword, if you use final as a keyword, even the concrete method cannot be overridden into the child class. That is what it means. I'm going to show you everything programmatically so that you understand, right? So final means the implementation is complete, so you cannot override, right? So this is a rules for us to have the abstract class. First one is an abstract class must be declared with an abstract keyword. That's the first one. The second one is it can have both abstract method and non-abstract method. I will show you. Then it cannot be instantiated, meaning if you have the method as an abstract method, it cannot be instantiated. Then the fourth one is it can have final method. As I say that you can have concrete method if you want to override. Even if you don't want to override that method, you can make that concrete method into a final method so that it cannot be overridden. Finally, it can have constructors as well as static methods. Now I'm sure that we are done with the theory part. Let me show you the practical part so that you will understand more. So here I'm going to my file, new project, Java application. Here click next. So here I'm just going to give the name as abstract class for my project, maybe abstract method, anything. Click finish. Here is a project that has been created. Go to the source file, default package, right click, new Java class. Here is the name of the class. So let me create the animal class here. Click finish. So it's going to create a class name as animal, right? So let me remove the access specifier for now. So let me save this part, right? So what is the first rule? If you want to create an abstract class, you have to use the keyword as abstract. So I'm going to make this class with the keyword abstract. So what is abstract? Let me the spelling. So what does that mean? This particular class is an abstract class. That's the first rule, right? Then this abstract class can have both abstract method as well as non-abstract method, or we can call them as a concrete method. What does that mean, abstract method? When you want to create the abstract method, that one has to be created with a keyword name called abstract, and then whatever the name that you give, let me say void, I'm going to call this one as a move. So this method is an abstract method because I have the keyword as abstract. When your method is an abstract method, you cannot have the body for this abstract method. What do I mean to say body? Usually when you have the method, within the method you will have system.out.println, and then here let's say I'm going to pass the message as hello. I'm sure that you have noticed there is a big fat error. When I hover here, the tooltip says abstract methods cannot have a body. What does that mean? If you have a method name as abstract, then that method is not going to have any body. So you have to remove this body section, because the rule is when the method is an abstract method, you are not allowed to have the body. I hope it's clear, right? So let me create another abstract method, and then let me call this one as, let me call void it, right? So I'm sure that you can remember an abstract class can have both abstract method as well as the concrete method. Concrete method in the sense the normal method. Let me say void label. This is a method, right? So here I can have the definition, system dot out dot println. So inside I would say maybe animal data. Here I can have the body, so just like a typo error, otherwise this one would work. So here you can see I had two methods in this abstract class, both abstract method as well as concrete method. Concrete method in the sense is just a normal method where we can have the definition for the function, right? So I have the abstract class with two different methods. As I say that when you have the method as an abstract method,
When your class name is an abstract class, that class cannot be instantiated. What do I mean to say the class cannot be instantiated? Let me show you this.
let me say now, here I'm going to create, okay, let me create another class. I'm going to call the class here, let me just go up. So I'm going to create a class. I can call this class, let me call this one as a bird. This one is going to be extend from the animal class, right, from this class. So here inside, what I'm going to do, let me create the same method name here, but without an abstract method. Void, I would say move, because the same method like here. So inside, okay, it's no problem. So here what it says that bird is not an abstract and does not override the abstract method eat in animal. So that is what we are trying to say, because it is comparing the void move with the bird class, I mean the child class, from the parent class, and the compiler is trying to check whether we can override this method from the parent class to the child class, and it just that found out this method is an abstract method. So it says that you cannot override this method unless maybe whatever the things that you put them here, that is the only thing can be displayed. So here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this, I'm going to paste them here just inside, maybe I would say moves by flying, right? So this is our first method. Then what I can do, maybe let me create another method with the same name, void eat. So let me copy and paste them here. So usually birds eat seeds, right? Birds eat seeds, right? So what I'm trying to do them here exactly, I'm trying to override the methods that found in the parent class. In this case, animal is a parent class, because I have got void move and the void eat. I'm trying to override this method in the child class, but unfortunately I can't override because this particular method is an abstract method, right? So what I can do now, let me create another one class fish extends the animal. What is the example of this one? I'm sure that you have remember, we are trying to do the hierarchio inheritance, right? So we are trying to inherit the properties from the parent class to the different child class. So class fish extends animal. So inside I'm going to have the method like let me say again void move. the same method. I'm just trying to check whether if I can override that abstract method, right? So system.out.println, usually fish moves by swimming, right? Swimming. And then let me create another method, void eat. So usually fish eats seafood, right? I hope you clear. What we have done so far, we have created the abstract class. If you want to create an abstract class, you have to use the keyword as abstract. The same abstract class can have the abstract method and non-abstract method. So these two are the abstract method. This is a non-abstract method. When the method is an abstract method, you cannot have the body. That is the reason why there is a no definition for this one. Again, if the method is an abstract method, that method cannot be overridden. So what we are trying to do in the child class, we are trying to override the method that there in the parent class here. So we have learned about the method overriding in the polymorphism. I'm sure that you can go and check if you want. So we are trying to override. As long as this method is an abstract method, you cannot override, meaning you're just going to print this detail that as part of this particular child class. So we have created two classes like that. This is like an example for the Hierarchio Inheritance, where more than one class can have the access to the parent class, right? So here what we are going to do now, we can just create a main method here. Let me say I'm going to create a class name called test bird. So within the class, what we can do, we can create the main method. So public static void main. So instead I'm going to have string argument yes. So inside what we are going to have, so what is it saying? There is an error, illegal state, fish bird, okay. Test, okay. The fish class, animal class starts here. Okay, it should end here, so that the error would go because it's a different class. So now let me remove this. It's okay, right? So it's like I'm trying to create another class as a main function. So inside, what I am going to do, I hope everything is clear as for now, right? So these are different classes. Fish is a different child class. This particular bird is a different child class, and this is the parent class, abstract parent class for both the bird class as well as the fish class, right? So being a parent class, so what we are trying to do, we're saying, okay, you can have access of this property, but though you are my child, but still you are not allowed to have any access on these two properties. That is what we are trying to do. So when it comes to the class here, so what we are going to do, we are going to create an object for the parent class, right? So when I say animal is a parent class, let's say animal. So here, let's say I'm going to create what can we say? We can create an object name as, let's say, my bird is the name of the object, equals new animal. So here we are trying to create the object for the parent class, right? Parent class. I hope you can see the difference. We are trying to create the object for the parent class, right? So if it is a case, I'm sure that as soon as I try to create the object for the parent class, you see there is a big error saying animal is an abstract, so it cannot be instantiated. Remember, in the theory part, I said it can have the yes, it cannot be instantiated. What does that mean? As long as the parent class is an abstract class, so you cannot create the object for this particular class. That is the reason why I said when the class is abstract class, it cannot be instantiated. That is the reason why you can see them here. There is a big fat error. But let's say I'm going to create the class for the bird, the child class. So here what I need to do, bird. Now there is no error. Now what I'm going to do, my bird dot, when I say move and eat, let's say I'm going to call the method as move, as well as my bird dot eat. When I call these two functions, because initially these two methods are found in the parent class, but these two classes are abstract class, so we can't do anything with it. So instead what we are going to do, we are just going to display the things that are found in the actual bird class. So when I go and run there, so you would see it will just return the message saying it's going to say moves by flying, birds eat seeds, because you cannot have any access on these two methods because of the keyword abstract. But you can have the access of this method because this is a normal method, concrete method with some body of the definition inside. So if you want to access, you can access like say my bird dot, let's say label. So when I save and refresh, you would see you can still able to access the label from the abstract class. Though it's an abstract class, animal data, I can still able to print. Why? Because it's just a concrete method, we can have the access. But if you want to restrict even this concrete method from accessing to the child classes, what we are going to do, as I said, since these two methods are abstract methods, so it cannot be overridden, as you can see them here. But this is a normal method, concrete method, it cannot be overridden, right? So even if I just create the same method, let me just copy and go here. So inside this one, let me say I'm just going to override that one. So here instead of animal data, I'm going to say label from birds. So in that case, if I try to access that my bird dot label, so this label method here in the parent class is going to be overridden by this child class method name saying label from the birds. So when I right click and run file, so as you can see them here, instead of just displaying the animal data from this void label method, it displays label from the birds, right? In case if you want even this method, you maybe, let's say you don't want this method also not to be overridden. In that case, what you can do, now you can override. In case if you want to block from overriding this method, so you can use as an abstract. If you use as an abstract, you cannot have the body, isn't it so? If you use as an abstract, you cannot have the body, but you want to have the body, but still you want to block the child class to access this method. In that case, you can use the keyword as final in front of this method, so that if the child class try to rewrite that or override that method, is going to throw an error. You can see them here already. Label in bird cannot override label anymore because that method is a final method. So you can see them here. That is the reason why you cannot override. It says that because that method is already a final method, so if you try to override, you can't. That's the reason why this error saying here, because you cannot override a method with a keyword name called final here. I hope now you have understood how to use the abstract class to protect a certain information of from the parent class to the child class, right? Then the second one that we are going to discuss them is about interface. I hope you can still remember when we were learning about the inheritance, I told you multiple inheritance is not allowed in Java, especially when you are dealing with the classes, but multiple inheritance is allowed when you use the concept of interface, right? So when it comes to the interface, what is interface? When you want to use the class as an interface class, you are going to use interface as a keyword, just like the way that we have used abstract as a keyword. Here we are going to use interface as a keyword, right? So what is the use of this interface method? It usually used to achieve the abstraction. What is the use of abstraction? To hide some information to the child class from the parent class, right? So by interface we can support the functionality of multiple inheritance. As I said that in a normal class you cannot have the multiple inheritance, but if the class is an interface, then we can have the multiple inheritance. I will show you in few minutes time, right? Then it can be used to achieve loose coupling. So that is the use of interface. Then an interface is a 100% abstract class. What do I mean to say 100% abstract class? I will show you what do I mean to say 100% abstract class. It can have only static, final and public field. In case if you want to try to create the fields in a private data, it's not allowed. Remember, the field is in a sense is like a data type, right? So in abstract class we can even have the private data type, but here you cannot have private data type. It has to be public or final or static, right? Classes can access an interface using implements keyword. This is an important thing that you need to focus. Here we are going to use the keyword as implements. So before in the abstract we use the keyword as an extends, right? So let me show you what I mean to say keyword. So here this is an abstract class, this is a parent class. If you want to access the properties of this class to the child class, we use the keyword as extends, right? So here in interface class we are no longer going to use the keyword as extend. We are going to use the keyword as implements, right? So let me show you the syntax so that you will understand. So here we are going to have the keyword as interface followed by name of the class name. For inside we can have the declare constant fields, we can declare an abstract field, or by default the normal one, right? Just like student string name is equal to Ranjan, something like that. I don't want to confuse you much, just remember this syntax. Let us just go there to our IDE so that I can demonstrate, right? So here what I'm going to do, let me create a new project, Java application. Next I'm going to call this one as an interface. So click finish. The project interface has been created. Go to the source package, right click here, new, go to the Java class. So here let me call this one as an Animo again. So click finish. So here remember we are going to use interface as a keyword. We are not going to have a class. Interface and followed by name of the interface. That's the syntax, right? Interface then interface name. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this keyword class. Instead I'm going to write interface. I hope things are clear, right? Then inside the interface method we can have fields and methods, but that field we are allowed to use a keyword only abstract or static, or I'm sure that let me show you. We can use static as a keyword, we can use final as a keyword, and public fields. So let me say I'm going to use the field as public is allowed, right? I'm going to use the keyword as public. Let me call this one as a void it. So by default when you create the methods and the fields in the interface, by default is going to be a abstract. So what do I mean to say abstract? Even if you don't use a keyword as abstract in front, even if I remove the public, even the normal method like void it in the abstract class is a concrete method, right? You can have the definition inside. So what do I mean to say definition inside? Let me show you that as an example that we have created here. A void label is a concrete method, we have the definitions inside. But when the class is an interface, when the method is an interface, even the normal method will be considered as an abstract method. What do I mean to say? When it comes to the abstract method, we are not allowed to create the body of the section, right? So let me say here I'm trying to create the body. As soon as I type this body of the section, let me come here, let me copy and paste them here. It's still showing me okay, the error has gone though. when I save, it's still showing me an error. So when I hover on this one, the tooltip says interface abstract methods cannot have body. So even if you put the normal method, by default this method will be considered as a abstract method. I'm sure that there is somewhere where I have written interface method. By interface method we can support the functionality of multiple. Okay, it is used to achieve the abstraction. Why? Even when you put a normal method, even if you don't use the keyword as an abstract, this method will be still considered as an abstract method. But here in the abstract method, if you want to say the method is an abstract method, you have to use the abstract as a keyword. But here in interface, there is no need for you to use the keyword as an abstract. Yes, you can still use abstract as a keyword. You have to remove the body, then put the semicolon. Still maybe the spelling is wrong. You can still use abstract as a keyword, you can use public as a keyword, you can use static as a keyword. By default this method is going to be considered as an interface. So what does that mean? If the method is an abstract method, you cannot instantiate, remember. So everything that you put under this interface is going to be protected. It cannot be instantiated, right? So let me say I'm going to create another method. So in this case, let me use the keyword as abstract. Then here I'm just going to create the method as void it. So this is an error because I have used the same method name here. So let me call this one as a move, right? So even if you don't use an abstract method, by default it's going to be an abstract method. So as I say that even if I create a method here, let us just create something. So instead of move, let me call this one as a sound, right? So there are two methods. Even if you don't use the keyword, it's going to be an abstract method. So here I'm going to have another interface method. Interface, I'm going to call this one as a bird. So within the bird, what I'm going to have, let me create integer, some fields. I'm going to say number of legs for the birds. Let me say usually there are 2, right? Then again I'm going to say string outer covering is going to be feathers. Then I'm going to have public white fly as a method. Just to show you we can use different keywords, right? So here in the white fly I'm going to, so it's an abstract method. I'm not allowed to have the body, right? Because even if you use public, whatever the keyword, by default is going to be abstract method, so you cannot have the body, right? So this is a different interface method, this is a different interface method, right? So from these two interface method, what if I want to create another class where I can able to access the animal class as well as the bird. So let me go to the slide so that I will show you how the multiple inheritance would look like. So you can see, so there are two different classes. I'm going to inherit the properties from these two different classes to this C class. So here is a class, so that is the reason why we are unable to achieve the multiple inheritance. So in this case, this is not the class, this is interface, but there are two different interfaces, right? So animal interface and the bird interface. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another class. Let me say I'm going to create a class this time, not the interface. I'm going to call this class as an ego. So remember, if you want to use the interface, I told you we are going to use the keyword as implements, right? So here instead of extends, I'm going to use implements as a keyword. So this is going to implement from those two interface method. One is an animal, another one is a bird, right? So inside what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create public white. So this is a normal class, right? So here is nothing like it's nothing like this is an interface method. This is a normal class. So public void, I'm going to create a method name as, let me say it, because we have the method as it here. So inside what is error here? Ig is not abstract, does not, okay, it will go actually. Public void it. So here what I can say, just copy, oh there is no system.out, okay, system.out.println. So inside, what I'm going to do here, usually eagles eats reptiles. So, and then again, what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to override all these methods from the classes interface animal and interface bird. So let me create another method. So this one is a sound. So how do they make sound? Maybe I don't know exactly how the eagles will make noise. So let me say this case it's whistling, right? So okay, then is there any other method here? There is another method here, white fly. So here instead of sound, I'm going to fly. So when it comes to fly, so then from here, what I'm going to do, I'm trying to access the properties from this animal interface and this bird class, because it has got two methods such as sound and eat. Even here it has got a method as fly. I'm trying to override these methods from the interface to this class. As I said, when the method is interface, by default is going to be an abstract. When the method is an abstract, it cannot be instantiated, right? So what I'm going to do here is like strictly you cannot have any access. Let me create another class. I can call this one as a ego test, just to check, right? So it's nothing like, so here I'm going to have the main method, public static void main string array argument yes. So inside, what we are going to do, let us create the object for this class that we have them here. So let's say let me copy them here. I'm going to paste them, ego equals new, then this is a ego class, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this object ego, I'm going to put dot, right? So when I say eat, do you think that we can still able to access the eat method from this animal interface? And then when I say that, let me say ego dot let's say the next one I would call, maybe let's call the fly method, and then ego dot, I think we have sound, yes, we have the sound method. Do you think that when I run this one is going to override the classes that are there in the interface and interface animal and the bird? Let me run so that you see. You see, eats reptiles, it flies up to 100 feet, whistling. So all of them, they were coming from this ego class. It's not necessarily we were overriding from the interface method, right? All of them, they were coming from the actual ego class. We were not overriding anything there, right? So for example, in case if you want to access these fields, so these are fields, right? So when I say integer, number of legs, string, outcome, these are fields. They are not method. Is it possible for me to access these fields to this class? Yes, it is possible. For that, what you can do, just go down there, maybe just write, let me paste them here. So inside, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say number of legs. Okay, this number of legs, what do you want them to print from? I'm going to print them from plus what is the name of the object here? Bird. I'm going to print them from bird dot number of legs, right? That's where I'm going to print the number of. Let me copy and paste. So here, instead of number of legs, outer feathers, right? Bird dot outer covering. So let me save and run. You will see we can still able to access those fields from the interface method. So number of legs, 2, number of, so it's not a number of legs. Instead I can say outer covering. Let me save and run again. As you can see them here, outer covering is feathers. So this is how interface method would work in Java. So with that interface method, we can actually have multiple inheritance, right? Multiple inheritance. I hope everything is clear as for now. So you might be wondering, so what is the difference between the abstract class and the interface class? Though we use abstract as a keyword there, but inside for the method you have to specify the method is an abstract method. But when you use interface as a method, even whatever interface as a method, there is no need for you to specify the method as an abstract. Even if you don't specify, by default is going to be abstract method, right? So you might be wondering, what is the difference between abstract class and the interface? Usually abstract class can have abstract and non-abstract method, but in interface it can have only abstract method. Even though if you don't specify the keyword as abstract, by default is going to be an abstract method. Then abstract class does not support multiple inheritance, but interface it does support the multiple inheritance, as you have seen them here. Then abstract class can have final, non-final, static, non-static variable, but in the interface, remember, as I said, it can have only static, final and public, right? Then abstract class can provide the implementation interface, but interface can't provide the implementation for the abstract class. Usually in the abstract class, the major difference, we know that we use abstract as a keyword there. For the interface, we use interface as a keyword. As I said, that Java abstract class can have methods such as, we can have the keywords such as private, protected, but here we can have only public, right? So this is a major difference between the abstract class and the interface class. So this is how abstraction will be achieved in object-oriented programming. Now we are going to learn about the concept of encapsulation in object-oriented programming. So what is encapsulation? Encapsulation in Java or encapsulation in object-oriented programming is a process of wrapping the code and data together into a single unit. I'm sure that sometimes we go to the hospitals, they have given some capsules, tablets like this. So within that capsules, they put a lot of different medicines together, then they wrap them together, right? So same thing in encapsulation. So encapsulation is a process of wrapping the code and data together into a single unit. So what is the use of that one? Okay, we are going to put the data and the code together and wrapping them together. So what is the use? So the main use of this encapsulation is to make the data confidential. So if you want to make some data confidential, if you want to have some confidential data in your program, especially when it comes to the banking system, you need to keep some information secret, right, against the unauthorized access. So in that case, we use the concept of encapsulation to make sure that the data is secured. So it's the way to achieve the data hiding in Java, because other class will not be able to access the data through the private data members. So in case if you want to restrict some part of the code from the parent class, you have to specify the data members or the fields with the access specifier called private. I'm sure that when I was talking about abstract, I told you it's not necessarily all the time you need to create the public data field. Sometimes you can even create the private data field. When you create the private data field, that information will not be accessed out of that class unless if you allow that data field to be accessed through the public data members of that particular class. So through that particular public member of that class, you can able to access them in the other part of the class. I hope I'm not confusing you. Let me give you this quick example so that you will be fine, right? So I'm going to open my text editor, go to file, I'm going to create a new project again. Let me call this one as an encapsulation. So click finish. So here is the project that I have created, encapsulation. Go to the source file, default package, right click, new Java class. So here I'm going to create a class Let me call this one as an animal class. So because we were learning about this same example throughout this object oriented concept, so that's the reason why I just want to stick with the same class. So here let me call this one as a class animal. So what I'm going to do, so within this class animal, I'm going to create the fields. So fields, I would say string name. That's the first field. I'm sure that now you know I have created the data field. So this data field has got no access specifier, meaning by default is going to be a default access specifier. What does that mean? As long as this is a default access specifier, this data field can be accessed anywhere in this particular package. And then if I put public, again it can be accessed anywhere in the program. But if I make this one as a private, what does that mean? This particular data field can be accessed only within this class name called animal. In case if I create another class name called maybe bird, if you want to access this data member of this class animal name called string data type is equal to name, is it possible? It's not possible because of the access specifier that I have used them here as a private. But what is the solution? Let's say I really want to access this data field from this class animal into the another class, though this is declared as a private. So does that mean that we will have no access at all? There is a way where still you can able to access this data member, though it's a private, but still there is a way that can be used. So what is a way? So what I'm going to do, let me create another one data field. I'm going to call them as a private again. I can call this one as a what can we say? We can say double as a data type because we never use double data type. So here I'm going to say average weight. These are all the two variables that I have declared with a private data function, private access specifier. So here what I'm going to do, let me say another one, private. I will say this one as an integer so that we can have different data types. Number of legs, no space. That's the reason why it's throwing an error. Now I have created 3 different data fields with a private access specifier. So now I'm going to create a method. So this method must be a public access specifier. Why? Because as I say that, what if I try to access the values of these data fields from this class animal to some other class, since they are private, right? So if you want to access these private data fields into another class, you need to have the public member function, or I would say public method, where you can have the access to this private data fields, so that we can call this public method into another class. We can still able to have the access for this private data field. So here I'm going to create public. I would say the method. What method? What can we have? We can say string get name as a method. So within this method, what I'm going to get them is I'm going to return the name that belongs to this private. So so I'm going to create another method. This one has to be public. If you make this one as a private, then you will have no access to this name, the weight, and the number of legs, right? So this one is going to be the function double. Maybe we can call the name as get number of legs as the function. So inside, what I'm going to return is the average weight, right? Better I can just copy and paste. Again, I'm going to create another function with a public access specifier. This one is going to be an integer. I would say, this one is an average weight, right? It's not the leg. Get number of legs. So inside, what I'm going to return them is this number of legs. So these are all the 3 methods that belongs to this class animal, right? So since these methods are public, where this public method have the access to this private data fields of the same class, so what we can do, we can create a different class. We can straight away call this public method, because this public method have the access of this private data member, so that we can make use of these public methods to get the access to these private data members, right? So here I'm going to create, what can I do? I can say I'm going to create another method. So here I'm trying to get the method, right? So I'm trying to get the name. Yeah, I'm trying to get the method of weight and the number of eggs. So these three, I would say getter method. Now I need to set the values, right? I need to set the value for the name. I need to set the value for the average weight. I need to set a value for the number of eggs. So let me say this one is a setter function or setter method. So this setter method, I'm just going to have public, right? Then I would say void set name as a method. So inside I'm going to set the name. So the name is a string data type. I'm going to pass the parameter as a name. So inside, inside what I need to do, I just have to pass the value. Let me say name as a value. What I'm going to do equals name. The name will be name. So same thing that I'm going to do for the get average method and those things. So what I'm going to do here, public void set average weight. So here, how to set average weight? You are going to pass the float as a parameter, sorry, double as a parameter here, then average weight, right? So inside, how to calculate the average weight? So average weight is going to be equals to this average weight. There is a spelling mistake here. Average weight is equal to average weight, right? Again, I'm going to create another method. I'm sure that you are getting me what I mean, right? So here I've set the method. Sorry, here I am trying to get the method. So for that, I need to set the values, right? So the values will be set using the setter method, public void. Then what is the next method? Set number of legs, right? So set number of legs. So inside is going to take the parameters, number of legs. I have used integer data type, integer. Then the value that I need to pass them here is number of, right? So inside flex will be get from, right? So now what do we need to do? We have to create the object. So within that object, we need to pass the value for this number of object. This name, we need to pass them there in the object creation in the main method. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a main function. So here, let me say I'm going to create a main function for the class. Let me create another class here. So class, I would call this one as a test animal. So within the class, I'm going to have the main function. So within this main function, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the object for the class. What is the class? Animal is the class, right? So let me call this one new. Now what do I need to do? I need to pass the values for these parameters here, right? So first I have to pass the value for the name. I have to pass the value for the average weight. I have to pass the value for the number of eggs. So how can I do that? That one can be done. For example, what is the object? This is ANI is an object dot. Then which one am I going to pass them now? So let's say set name. There is a set name method. So here set name. So here I need to pass the name. So let's say the name is Dow. Okay. Then what I'm going to do next, again animal dot. Then I have to say set average weight. So it has to be in the double. So let me say 2.2. Then animal dot. What is the next method? So next method I will say number of legs. Number of legs. So number of legs I would say that's a value because it's an integer. So it's showing me an error. So what's the error? Method number of legs in animal cannot be applied in the given types. Let me go up there. So we'll check that one later, right? So then from there, what I want to print them, let me say system.out.println. So inside what I want to print them here is, let's say I want to print the name. The name, where am I going to print the name from? Plus my, from that animal object dot get average weight, and then I just want to concatenate with, let me say kg. So this kg is going to be a string, then followed by what I want to print them is, here is a name, so get average name, actually maybe get name method, right? So what I want to print them is a name, so get name. So this is what I want to print. So there is no kg here. So if I want to print the kg, so average weight is going to be get average weight method, get average weight method. So I want to concatenate with a kg so that it can print the kilogram. Again, this one, instead of name, this one is going to be number of legs. So here it's just going to be, instead of get name, it's going to be any dot get method get number of legs. So we don't have the get number of legs method. Oh, just the number of legs method. So here you can see the method name is number of legs. So let me just change this one as a get number of legs as well. So even here, instead of number of legs, I'm going to say any dot set. Oh, I didn't create a set method here. Oh, it's here, set number of legs. So let me copy, come here and paste. So inside you can pass 2 number of legs as the value. Yes, right here we are going to use get dot get number of legs. I think that's it, right? So what we are trying to do, in short, let me explain you so that you won't get lost. So what we are trying to do, encapsulation is a method where we are trying to protect the data with the help of this private access specifier. So it's protected. If you want to access this one out of the main class, so this is a different class, right? Class test is a different class. We are trying to access the private data members of this class Animo. The private data members, which is nothing but this string name, these are private, to out of the class. In that case, what you need to do, you have to create the public method in the same class where you have the private data members, such as like string get name. This is like a get method, name and average, so that it is going to return the name and then average weight and the number of legs, right? So here we need to pass the value. So it's going to return the number of legs. Where is it going to return the number of legs from? From here is the place where we are going to set the method. So string name. So where are we going to pass the value for the name? So though, okay, we are saying that name. So where is the name actually? So we need to pass the names here in the object. So dow is a name. So this name will be assigned to this parameter name here. So this name will be dow. But when I assign that dow to this name, where is this name comes from? This return. So this name is from the return statement. This name is a parameter. So but the value for the parameter is here in the object, right? So if you want to access the value from this object to this parameter, where to this parameter, this is when we use this as a keyword. So you have to use this dot. So what does that mean? This specifies that particular object. So that name that you pass them here, that will be referred with the help of this keyword. So even here you have to use this as a keyword. So in case if you don't use this as a keyword, what will happen? Even if you pass the value here, it's not going to be printed because that one will not be known by the compiler. To make the compiler know this value that I am passing them here, that is the value for this variable name. So that is the reason why we are using this as a keyword. So when I save and run, you would see the result saying name is dow, average weight is 2.2 kg, number of legs is 2. So whatever the values that we are passing them here as an argument here, so it needs to be collected in this parameter with a variable name called name. So that is the reason why we are using this. In case if I don't use this here, let's say I'm removing this here. Let me save and run again. You see name is now, because though I have passed the value as dow here for the name of the bird, here is not getting that value because I have not used the keyword as this. This specifies that particular object that we have created with the value. So using this is, I'm sure that you have already come across with this keyword even in other programming, object oriented programming. This specifies that particular object. So if you don't specify this, whatever the value that you pass them here is not going to be considered. Instead is just going to print them as a null. That is the reason why I have used this. So let's come back to the business. Encapsulation in object oriented programming is make sure that the data is protected unless if you give them the access. So these data are protected only that we have give them the access through this public method, because you cannot just, let's say if there is no these methods, let's say there is no these public methods, let me cut, right? So these are private, right? So now if you want to access these values like string name, let's say even here I'm just going to delete, right? So here I've created the object for this class, right? So there is an error, not necessarily, okay, the error has gone. Now this is simple, right? So what I have them here is a private data member. So here what I'm going to do now, ani dot, let's say I want to assign the values for this one. So here what I'm going to do, before creating the object, so even here let me create a value is equals to Ranjan. So this is a data member, this is a private data member. What if I want to access this private data member into this class? I'm sure that in the previous example I have showed you how to access the value, right? So here I'm going to say system.out.println. So in case if I want to access that private data member here, so what do I need to do? So I have to do ani dot, I usually call that name, right? So as soon as when I put name here, there is an error saying name has a private access in animal. In case if this one is not a private, let me say I'm going to remove the private. The error has gone. Let me save and run. It's print Ranjan as a value, but as soon as I change this one to private, there is an error here. There is a big fat error, meaning I'm not allowed to have the access of this data because this is a private. So in case if I want to have access of this private, what do I need to do? That is the reason why I have created those methods with a public keyword. So that is the reason why I have created these public methods in order to get the access of these private data members, so that I can able to access those values here in the another class. So this is how encapsulation would work. I hope everything was clear up to now, but in case if you have got any questions, you are free to ask me through comment section. Thank you so much. Have a good day.